Welcome to the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and I'm an artist and an entrepreneur. And yes, those two things can go together. This podcast is for the artists, the creatives, and the makers who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hi there, it's Melissa here, and I'm popping in before the start of the episode to ask you all for a little bit of help. If you've been enjoying the podcast and you're listening to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, it would mean so much to me if you could head over there and leave us a review. And regardless of what platform you're listening to us on, if you've been enjoying the content and finding it really useful, I would love it if you could tell a few of your friends who you think might also get a kick out of the kinds of things we talk about here. All of that helps us grow the And She Looked Up community and helps us get found by other creative Canadian women. And that is something that I am personally very passionate about. So if you could take a few moments of your time to help us out with that, I would appreciate it so much. And now on to this week's episode. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 36 of the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and I am back this week with Heather Travis. Hello, Heather.
Yeah. Hello.
Heather's got like a pro setup this week. She's pretty excited about her new microphone.
I feel really, I said to Melissa, I feel really like, I feel really professional. I feel like I should put this on my LinkedIn right now. Has microphone.
This week, Heather and I, this is kind of a spontaneous episode for us because it came out of a conversation we were having last week based on some things I was seeing in a few maker and product seller groups that I'm in on Facebook. And that is, when is the right time and how do you work with influencers and brand ambassadors to promote your products? And the reason we wanted to talk about this is because we both see an awful lot of bad advice out there on how to do social marketing or influencer marketing. And this is an area that Heather and I both work in every day. So we feel like we're qualified to talk about it.
Yes. And funny enough, would you not say that there's probably more bad advice than there is good advice for this, which is honestly shocking considering how much of an opportunity it is to do awesome things?
It is. It can be a very powerful marketing tool for your business if you do it right and if you understand how it works. But I just see so much terrible advice out there that could honestly hurt you as a business owner if you follow it, which we do not want. So this episode is not for people who are influencers or digital content creators or social marketers. It is more for people who are like makers, crafters, artists, people who want to get awareness out about what they do or who want to drive sales. There's different ways that you can use influencer marketing, which, by the way, is a term that we both hate. I think because it has a lot of very negative connotations around it. I think it implies that maybe the people you're working with maybe don't have the best ethics or it's not a real job. I can assure you that the people who do this and do it well work extremely hard and they are very ethical. So what we wanted to talk about today was just walk you through the whole process of going down this marketing path because, as I said, it can be a very powerful tool for your business and it can drive a lot of traffic and a lot of sales if it's done well and if you team up with the right people.
Yes. Yes. Funny enough, this goes back to, if you've listened to Melissa and I gab on and on for a while, you will have heard the words research and relationships. And that comes into play very strongly in our conversation around working with influencers and influencer marketing is research and relationships. So we'll talk about that today.
I had in my notes for today's episodes, I have in great big block letters, do your research. So
yes.
So first of all, let's just talk a little bit about what social marketing or influencer marketing is. In most cases, this is where you will work with a blogger, an Instagrammer, a YouTuber. And there's another category of people, kind of a catch-all category that we were talking about a few minutes ago, that might include people like healthcare professionals, fitness professionals, people like personalities, potentially even celebrities. Am I missing anyone in that group?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's sort of a good to catch all because there's lots of people who have their, true street cred. They're an influencer off of social media. It's not because of their Instagram channel or their YouTube channel. Like and Melissa and I, the example that I was using is my dermatologist. She's a professional dermatologist, but she has an Instagram account that is wildly popular because of all of the great information that she shares. And so she could be an Instagram influencer in the beauty business. But really, she's a professional dermatologist with credentials in an office building and all of those things. So it's a slightly different working relationship, but it really falls into the same bucket.
It's still influencer marketing. So these are the people that you might choose to work with. And in some cases, they may even reach out to you before you reach out to them. And that's where I tend to see a lot of people have their first sort of brush with influencer marketing, is an influencer has reached out to them and they don't necessarily know how to respond or whether it's something they should do or what the process is. Or in other instances, they've been told by people, oh, just send your product to a bunch of Instagrammers. Don't do that.
Please don't do that.
Bad advice number one. Don't just blindly send your product out to people who you don't know. So if this is a path that you decide to go down where you want to work with people on Instagram or bloggers, bloggers are an interesting one because they tend to be active on all social media platforms. So they tend to have reach in many different spaces. Whereas an Instagrammer or a YouTuber, they often tend to be very platform specific. So they may not have these other arms out there.
Yes.
So you want to think about the types of people that you want to work with. And that brings us into the very first thing to consider when you're thinking about working with influencers or digital content creators. And that is, what are you trying to achieve by working with them? Step number one.
Yes.
What are your goals from this partnership or collaboration? And you really do need to think of it as a partnership or collaboration. So, Heather, you do a lot of campaigns from the brand side.
Yes.
What are some of the goals that a lot of your clients may have with an influencer campaign? What are the types of things they're looking for?
So usually our campaigns have a multitude of goals, and I would encourage you, if you're trying to sell your art or you're a maker and you're selling items or cards or prints or whatever it is that you're creating, beautiful necklaces, you need to have a variety of goals that you're trying to achieve, business goals. So it might be, I want to sell more of a particular item. It might be that you want to raise awareness around availability of a particular item. So maybe you used to have something only in summertime, but now you have it summer and winter. So you really want to draw attention to the fact that this is available now in wintertime. Or maybe you're trying to just get more eyeballs on your stuff, right?
Yes.
It could just be eyeballs, right? You just want more people looking at it. And so it could be all of those. I want to sell more stuff. I want more people to look at it. And I want more people to be aware of when it's available. It could be all of those things. And so I think having a very clear list of all of the potential things that you want to achieve, and then figuring out, how do I match it up with the right pairing so that I can achieve my business goals, because it depends on who you work with and what you really want to set things up so that they end up the way you set it up.
I kind of look at it from a lot of the campaigns we do. There tends to be, the main goal tends to fall in one of two categories, either sales or eyeballs, brand awareness. Yeah. And there's different ways that you can go about either of those, but you're going to work with very different people depending on which one of those is your main goal. You could work with an influencer who has 500,000 followers. That's probably a good person to work with if you just want eyeballs. It may not be a good person to work with if you want sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are things, that's what you really need to nail down before you even start looking for who you want to work with. You really need to have an idea of what your main goal will be. And another way to kind of think about what your goal should be is think about at the end of this campaign, what will mark it as a success for you?
Yes.
So like if your sales go up by 10% over the week that you do this campaign, would that be a good outcome for you? Mm-hmm. If your Instagram grew by 1,000 followers, would that be a good outcome for you? Like, those are the kinds of questions you want to ask yourself.
Yes. And what's going to make you do the sort of happy dance down the hallway in your house and go, oh my God, like, what is going to make you have that reaction? Because if you're having that reaction, that means something awesome has happened for your business.
Totally.
And so what is that's going to make you skip down the hallway and say, oh my gosh, and is it followers? Is it sales? And I would, funny enough, just add the random caveat that you really do want to be prepared to achieve your goals. So if your goal is to sell a bunch of stuff, when you get those orders, don't go, oh, what now? I now need to make all of. You really should be prepared. And so if you have set these lofty goals for yourself, believe in yourself and believe that you will achieve them, so that when you do achieve them, you're not kicking yourself and missing out on the opportunity that you just teed yourself up for.
Exactly. Like, remember when Oprah used to have her favorite things episode every Christmas? I know,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. I love that episode. I always wanted to be in the audience.
Exactly. So Oprah is an influencer. If Oprah said something was amazing, you were guaranteed to have your sales like quadruple. And there were many instances where she would feature something and the companies really were not prepared for the amount of product that they were going to sell and found themselves with their websites crashing or with running out of inventory within an hour kind of thing. And you don't want to be in that situation. Now, obviously, most of us are not going to be working with somebody on the scale of Oprah. But, if you only have 2 units available of that really cool purse that you're sending out to some influencers, is that going to be enough?
Exactly.
What happens if you sell 10? And that actually brings up another point, is think about the type of business you have. If you are somebody who makes handcrafted, beautiful leather purses and it takes you like a week to create one purse, like they're literally one of a kind type of creations, you really want to think carefully about how you're going to manage that on something like when you work with an influencer in that instance, right? That really needs to be, maybe you're going to go more for an awareness campaign than a sales campaign.
Yes. And so funny enough, this just brings an episode of Parks and Rec to mind, funny enough. Ron Swanson manufactures, he makes these really awesome, beautiful chairs. He's a woodworker, he makes these awesome chairs. And his chairs get picked up by some local blogger's lifestyle website, which of course sets his chair off into the stratosphere. And he just loses his mind because it takes a year per chair and I'm not making more of these. And why on earth would you do this? And we got such a great product. People need to know about this. And so this to me is like a perfect example of the influencer sees huge value in this product, but didn't talk to the maker in saying, what's the process? How can we, like, people need to hear about this, yes, but we don't need them clamoring for 1,000 orders. We need to then build awareness on the fact that this is going to take a year, and that if you get yourself name on that list, that's the win, right?
Yes.
It's not, and so that's around communicating the sales goal, and that once you've set that down, when you're having that conversation with the person that you're working with, you need to communicate that needs to be part of, here's what we're trying to do together. I need you to, right?
Yes.
Because if you don't have that, you're kind of missing some of lot could be lost in translation.
Yes. So when we're talking about brand awareness, when I sort of said that you can divide it into you either trying to sell your product or you're trying to gain awareness of your brand. And there's so many different ways you can gain awareness of your brand. Like we have worked with clients who just want to get the word out about a contest they're having, or they want to grow their newsletter list, or they want to grow their social media following on a particular platform. So in those instances, they're working with social influencers in order to create awareness. They're not necessarily going for sales at all. They just want newsletter signups. They want social media. They want, those kinds of things. So you need to think about where you're going to go with this. And like Heather said, you need to be prepared for any particular outcome. The odds of you going viral are very small, but they do happen. It does happen. So, but that's another caveat. The odds of going viral are very small. So don't necessarily think that doing a campaign like this is going to change the world for you. It's just literally another form of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's say you've got your campaign goal. You're like, okay, I have decided that I want to promote my Christmas advent calendar that I have handmade, and I have 2,000 of these that I need to sell. How do you go about finding somebody to work with? There's literally millions of influencers out there. Some of them truly are influencers. Some of them are just self-declared influencers. How do you find the person or the people who are going to be the best fit for what you want to do, which is sell these handmade advent calendars with your creations inside?
One of the first things that I would immediately do is, okay, am I shipping these worldwide? Am I shipping these regionally, or is this a hand delivered item in my local neighborhood? And so what is that sales goal for the item? And is it, or even the reach goal, like whose eyeballs do I want on this, right? And so if your item is if you're a local cookie maker who makes ridiculously beautiful artisan cookies, if they ship all around the world, you can work with any influencer who communicates in any language, right? The world is your oyster. But if you're only looking for people in Abbotsford, BC, you want to target and only work with influencers who are in and around your region. So you need to think that through. That's why the goal is a really important one, because it extends through really all of the choices that you're going to be making about your campaign or outreach effort as you go through the whole process.
Yes. And even if you're just looking at, let's say, influencers in Abbotsford, even that can be, you have to be careful with that, because
of course,
that person in Abbotsford might have a huge following, but their following could be all over North America. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the first questions that you probably want to ask a potential partner is, who is your audience? Like, where is your audience? And and somebody who is a true blogger or YouTuber or Instagrammer, they know that information. They will be able to give you statistical information, demographic information. They have that info. So those are questions.
And if they haven't, they should listen to our episode on building a media kit and why they should have it for their brand. Because then they will gather that information and be able to give it to you.
Exactly. So those are the kinds of things you want to look at. You want to know where's their audience? Who interacts with them? Yeah. That's a huge one. Okay. You're also going to want to look at, let's say you make the beautiful purses. Mm-hmm. Okay. That in most instances is going to mean that you want a demographic that's mainly women. Okay. Not always, but in most instances. So, maybe that influencer with 500,000 followers that are all mainly men. Yeah, they have a really attractive follower number, but is their audience your audience? Probably not. So you never know though. But again, you're going for the biggest bang for your buck here, right? So you really do want to find that person who's the right match. So you're looking at things just, you should have a customer avatar, right?
Yes.
And there is a customer avatar worksheet that you can get for free on the And She Looked Up website when you sign up for our newsletter. I will include the link in our show notes, where you can figure out who your avatar or avatars are. But that's essentially what you want to have before you even start looking for who to match up with, because you want your avatar to match up with that influencer's audience. It's like a dating game.
It's like a dating game, but I think, if we want to sort of relate it to old school media terms, if you have a beautiful cookie, you do not want your beautiful handmade, hand decorated cookie to appear in Woodworkers Daily.
No.
You want it to appear in Bon Appetit, right? Because the people who are reading Bon Appetit are interested in cookies, not people who are interested in Woodworker Daily. I'm not saying woodworkers aren't interested in cookies, but it's a much more logical fit to go with the media outlet. And so think of the influencers, the ambassadors that you're looking at as an outlet for your product, and does your product fit that outlet? And you can look through their photos. What other products do they talk about? And is my product one of those? Would I be happy to have my product in a list of 12 products, of which all of the other products are featured on this, influencer's account?
Yeah.
Am I happy to be in that mix? And if the answer is yes, then that's probably a good fit for you. But if you're looking at it and saying, gosh, they're talking about all of these things that have no relation to my product, well, then you probably don't. And it's not that they're not an influencer, they're just not the right fit for your particular product.
Exactly. The magazine example that you just gave was a great one. That's one that I use a lot. Like, there are times where let's say you make dog biscuits, handmade dog biscuits, right? There are times where you may want to advertise in Martha Stewart Living or Canadian Living, because you want eyeballs. You want everyone to know that these dog biscuits exist, right? But if you're really focused on sales of your dog biscuit, then you might want to take your advertising dollars and put them into New Puppy Magazine or something like that. I don't know.
Yes.
I know there's magazines out there about puppies, but I don't know their names,
yes.
right? But, if you advertise that in Canadian Living, let's say that 50% of their audience has dogs. Okay, that's not bad. But if you put it in the Puppy Magazine, that's going to be like 90% of their audience has a dog, and the other 10% are looking at getting a dog.
Have a dog. Exactly.
so, both of them can do something for you, but it's going to be a different kind of goal that you're going after. So
yes, and I think too, there's an opportunity to create a new story. So if we're, for instance, if we're sort of tying all our examples together, if you're that dog cookie, maybe the woodworking magazine might be a good fit, because we're talking about dogs that hang out in the woodworking shop, and it's a lifestyle piece, and here are the cookies that we feed them, right? And so you're making the angle, you're telling the story within the context of the outlet that it's being told in, as opposed to trying to fit, you're putting the Rubik's Cube together, and if you can't get the colors to match, then you don't want to do it. But if you can tell the story that makes the colors match, great. And that might be an interesting way to communicate what your product is in an outlet that might be not the obvious fit,
yes,
but that has a really wonderful, lovely string connecting all of the pieces.
And that's where we get into talking about niches. It would be great if we could all work with the influencers who have 1 million followers on Instagram, or 1 million page views on their blog, or those really big numbers. There's a couple things to know about that. If you're working with an influencer with that kind of following, it's not free. It's going to be expensive.
Show me the money.
It is going to be expensive. So if you're starting out, maybe that's not in your budget. Like, you need to be aware of that. Influencers, true influencers, people who have a voice and a point of view, and who create content and who create useful content for their audience, they are professionals at what they do, and they don't work for product. So that is one of the biggest myths and worst pieces of advice that I see going out to people. Just send them your product.
No.
That is such a mistake. And the expectation that they will do this in exchange for a coffee cup that you made or a bag of dog biscuits is, you're going to get a rude awakening.
No kidding. And I mean, to be super blunt, if when taxman comes calling, I can't send that pretty scented candle to the taxman as payment.
But I have to declare the value of it on my income.
But I have to declare the value of that candle on my taxable income. And so, and I think that's one of the things. And funny enough, I remember years ago when I had my blog, when people would say, "Oh, isn't this so cool, Heather? You're getting all this free shit." And I'm like, yeah, but it's not free, actually. This is taxable income. I have to, every can of paint that I get, I have to declare that as income and I have to pay taxes on it. And so I think you really need to understand that business, like true business element, especially in Canada, of how that works.
Yes. So your tax laws might be different where you live, but in Canada, if you receive free product in exchange for services, that product is considered income and you have to declare the value of it. And usually, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it has to be the retail value.
Correct. It does have to be the retail value. So, yes. I promise you, it has to be the retail value.
So, it might have cost the manufacturer $4 to make it, but if they're selling it for $40, that's the value that influencer has to declare. So that's not to say that you can't work with somebody in exchange for free product, but you have to have realistic expectations of who that person is going to be and what they might be able to do for you in return. So
and it would also depend on the value of your product. If you have a $5 thing versus a $5,000 thing,
yes,
right? And so I did projects on my blog where I worked, quote, for free. I didn't get a paycheck, but I got a new washer dryer. So yay me, right? And yes, taxable income, but the value that I received. And so I think that's part of, and this goes to what Melissa just said, don't just send something willy-nilly. You need to have that conversation because somebody might be willing to receive your product without any compensation, but you cannot assume that right out the gate, and you really need to have that as a conversation around value and deliverables.
Yes. The people out there who have the really huge followings, they get inundated with product that they don't request, like literally inundated with it, and they can't share it all. They give a lot of it away because they don't need it. And, you don't want your product to go in the recycle bin when it lands on somebody's doorstep because,
that's just a waste. You could have sold it to somebody who actually
it's
wanted
a waste.
it.
And, that person has received 60 cute illustrated greeting cards in the last week that people want them to show their audience. So yes, we'll get more into how compensation works in a minute, but we were going down the road of like niche, and there's a term out there called micro-influencers. So these are people, and the number changes all the time. I've heard that it's less than 10,000, less than 20,000, less than 100,000. Basically it's an influencer with a smaller number next to their name.
Yep.
However, small but mighty.
Yes.
If that person is the right niche for you, they may only have 1,000 followers, but if their niche is like, let's say that you are going after, you make the dog biscuits and you are going after, those people who work at home all day. Maybe they're an artist like me and Heather, and we both have dogs, and our dogs are with us in the studio all day.
Yeah.
So, we're an interesting little group. And I guarantee you there's probably a niche out there, somebody out there who speaks to us.
Yes.
Saying that your product is for moms, that's not niche.
No.
At all, right? So you need to dive down a little deeper than that when you're looking at who you want to work with and why they might be a great fit. So I remember years ago, this was years and years ago, we did a campaign with a coffee company. So they were a small local coffee company, sort of right on the beginnings of like the hipster coffee kind of thing. And we were helping them find influencers to work with. They wanted specifically food bloggers. So they came to us and we were helping them find the right people. And they chose somebody who was a little smaller, but she had a really interesting style. She swore like a trooper.
My kind of girl.
Which, quite frankly, would terrify most brands. They'd be like, no, 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 right? But she was quirky. She was outgoing. She had a real, like, you know, she was just, here I am, right?
Yes.
And they loved her. They're like, this is who we want. We want somebody who is kind of edgy and not afraid to let loose with her language. And for a lot of people, she would not have been the right fit. But for this particular brand, she was perfect. And so that's what you need to think about. You need to think like niching right down and finding those smaller influencers, because often they are the ones who may be willing to work for free product. Not always. If they know their value and they know what they bring to the table, they may not be willing to work at all for product.
Yeah.
But if they know their value and what they bring to the table, they also know they can get you the results that you're looking for. And they will tell you straight up. The smaller influencers know exactly who their audience is. And they usually have a very engaged audience because it is smaller. They can take the time to engage one-on-one. Whereas an influencer with 500,000 followers can't do that. They physically just can't do that. It's impossible. So, you know, they will tell you straight up, like, this is not a good fit for my people. There's no way I could take this to my people without them having a mutiny on my hands. Or
exactly.
they'll be like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is exactly
perfect.
what my people are looking for. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And you may find they maybe only had 1,000 followers, but you might find that 100 of them buy, which is great.
Yes. And honestly, I would not, and I'm saying it because I'm, quote, one of those micro influencers. I don't even have 1,000 followers on my Instagram. But the people who follow me really listen. And in fact, funny enough, I get messages from like big influencers saying to me, I'm working on a project. And when I told my people I'm working on it, 2, 3, and 4 people told me about you. And so the loop works in really interesting ways where there's, you know, your people can be your ambassadors who then loop out to the bigger ambassadors, right? And so you don't know how far that spreads. And I would really say, especially for makers, crafters, people who, you know, you probably don't have a huge budget. And I know if Melissa and I were to launch an influencer campaign, quote, you know, if I was doing one for my art business and you were doing one for your design business, like, you would not have $1,000 to pay somebody. No way, Jose. And so I really encourage you to look at those micro influencers and those smaller people, because that, you know, person in your market who only has 500 followers, the people who they talk to really, really listen to them. And it's really meaningful conversations that they're having with their followers, because it is a smaller sewing circle, so to speak. So I really wouldn't underestimate the power of the micro influencers, especially as a small maker creator. And that's where you can have that interesting conversation with them too, that I'm a small local creator. I don't have a huge budget, but I love what you do. And this is where, you know, hopefully they know their worth and they demand good compensation for their influencer status. But also, you know, we all want to help small makers and local businesses grow and thrive. And so, you know, there might be like a price break or the deal that they offer, you know, because you're a local maker or an influencer. I really want to work with you. So normally my rate would be this. I'm going to work with you at a smaller rate. And so don't be afraid to have those conversations, because it's a really important part of that discussion, and you never know who you might get on your side.
Yes. So here's an example that's kind of real life to me right now. I have a small, very small Etsy store where I sell prints, greeting cards, and stickers. So I could put together a small package that I want to send out to some influencers. And probably if I wasn't in the influencer space, my first thought would be to send it to some lifestyle bloggers. Like, you know, like cute cards, cute stickers. yeah, like get it out there. Maybe they'll share it, and I'll get maybe a few sales. But that's not what I would actually do. Instead, what I have learned from doing research over the last few months is that there is a huge snail mail community out there. Like, it's a crazy huge community. There are some bigger influencers in the space, but most of them are very small influencers with less than 5,000 followers. But these are the people who send stuff in the mail, right?
Yes.
They are the people who will send a greeting card. A lot of people don't send cards anymore. So it would be a much better use of my time and my marketing dollars to approach these smaller snail mail people.
Absolutely. Because they're your people.
They're my people.
Like, you need to find your tribe.
So, that's not to say that a lifestyle blogger would, if I were to work with them, that they wouldn't have some of my people as part of their audience. I'm sure they would.
Yeah.
But it would be a much smaller percentage of that group.
Yeah.
So I'd be throwing, it's sort of like throwing pebbles into the ocean or throwing pebbles into a puddle outside your house.
Exactly.
Which one's going to have a bigger ripple effect?
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that the budget that it would cost you to go throw pebbles into the big ocean versus maybe 5 different puddles, right? And so now, instead of working with one big influencer, you could maybe work with 5 micro influencers. And then, in fact, you're getting a greater ripple effect because it's cumulative. It's all 5 puddles. It's not just, and that allows you to tell perhaps 5 of the same story or 5 totally unique, right? Like, it could be, and I'm thinking for your product, Melissa, like, there's the snail mail people, but then there's the people who do all of their calendars and day planning. And then, right. So you can tell a slightly different brand story with each influencer, depending on what their niche is and what they think their people would be the most interested in hearing.
Yeah. So for people who are in like the journaling space or the planner space, maybe instead they're the people I would go with my stickers as opposed to my greeting cards, right? And then maybe the, home decor bloggers are the people I go to with my prints, right? Yeah. Like, you have to sort of think about all the different products you have, the different people, who they speak to, who their community is. So those are some of the things that you have to look at when you do your research, and you do have to do your research. And you can either do the research yourself, which when most of us are starting out, that's what we have to do, or you can hire somebody to do it for you. Could be a PR agency. It could be, there are a lot of companies out there who manage blogger brand or blogger influencer or brand influencer programs. That's going to cost you money, but they tend to have different agencies, and different companies will have different groups of influencers that they work with. So if you're looking for a specific niche, they might be able to find you exactly the right person without you having to do all the research, but you're going to have to pay them to do the research for you. So
I was just, funny enough, I'm like, okay, well, that's what I do. That's what you do. And so you could spend 50 hours researching, figuring it out, or you could pay me, and I've already, got the connections. I've got the people. I know who to talk to. We've already set things up. And so what you're saving is that 50 hours of your time in paying me to do the work for you.
If you get to a point where you are selling many units a month or a week or a year, that might be the better option for you. But most of us, when we're starting out, if we're bootstrapping, we're going to have to do the research on our own. So if you're doing the research on your own, you, like we said, you want to look at the person's demographics. You want to look at their follower count. You want to know where those followers are. You want to know what kind of reach they have. You also want to look at their engagement.
Yes.
This is huge. Okay, there are some less than ethical people out there who buy followers, and there's all kinds of ways you can boost your follower count without actually going about it organically. But that's usually reflected in the engagement that influencer will see. So engagement is the key metric here. You want to know, like, how many comments are they getting? How many likes are they getting? How many DMs do they get? How many people watch their lives if they go live.
Yeah.
How many people go to their website if they also have a blog, which I want to talk about in a minute, like whether you work with an influencer or a blogger. So those are the kinds of things you want to look at. Another thing you want to look at is, okay, they have a lot of comments. Read the comments.
Read
what
the
kind of
comments.
comments are they getting?
Yes.
There's a whole world out there of things like comment pods, where a group of influencers will get together and they'll all comment on each other's posts to try and boost engagement and game the algorithms that they have to fight. So take a look and see who those people are. You know, if you want to work with a baking blogger and you notice that the only other people commenting, let's say you make these really cool cookie cutters and you want to work with a baking blogger, okay? And the people who are commenting on their posts are all other baking bloggers.
Right.
So yes, they might be really interested, but you would have to pay to work with them as well. Right?
Yes.
So what you're looking for is those people at home who are going to go out and buy the cookie cutters. So you need to dig a little below the surface. Don't just take everything that you're seeing out there at face value.
And funny enough, it's all there. It's all there for you to see. Like all of the comments are there, and you just have to dig. And even funny enough, like if you see great engagement on posts, but then you see a post, so you're selling that handmade purse. If you see posts about handmade purses on their stream, on their grid, and they fall flat, but their posts about other things don't, then maybe they're trying to force that purse angle too hard. And that might be that even though they're interested and maybe they're kind of a good fit, their audience is telling you, like, and the research will show you, maybe this isn't the best fit for you, right? And so there's the opportunity to do that research and see who have they worked with? How was it received? What do the comments look like? Is their photography something that I like for my product?
Does it fit with your brand?
Exactly. Did they take a picture of my cookie the right way? You want to know, ooh, that could sound really weird. But sorry. But you really want to make sure that that they're going to represent your brand properly, and that's on you. And I think this is where a lot of our conversation today is going, is that a lot of this work falls on you as the maker or creator you have created this wonderful product or item, and you also need to create the relationships and the channels that this goes out on, because if you don't manage those, you're no longer managing the product you're creating. You're handing it off to somebody else, and that's a big mistake, right?
Yes. I mean, think about it. If you were like a gigantic corporation and you were if you wanted to sell, I don't know, let's say you're a cereal company and you want to sell your chocolate oat bombs or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you want to do a national television campaign for the chocolate oat bombs, right? You're not going to figure that out in-house. You're going to hire
a big agency,
an advertising agency to come up with a campaign that hits your target market, that shows your product in the light.
It's been tested, like consumer tested. Do people like this? What do they feel about the advertisement?
Yes.
All of that.
But when you're an influencer, you're not going to be hiring a big agency to do that. But think of the influencers that you're working with as almost like the people who are creating a campaign for you. So, if you, right now in the food world, dark and moody images are very in, and there is some absolutely stunning photography that is going on out there on Instagram for these beautiful, dark, moody images of food. Okay. If you are somebody who makes country jam, jam that has like a real country feel, and it's got like the gingham, jam top lids.
Yeah.
Maybe those influencers aren't the right fit for you. Maybe you don't want your jam.
I want to see a big old sunflower in a picnic basket.
Exactly. Yeah. You're going for like cottage core or something.
Totally.
Like that. So that's another thing you want to look at. You want to take a look at the artist, at the person's style and the type of photography they do and the type of language that they use. So all those things that you would be looking for if you were sending a brief out to an ad agency on what kind of commercial you want them to come up with for your product,
Mm-hmm.
you want to do the same kind of research with the influencers that you're going to work with. I also just want to mention, as we sort of mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Instagrammers and YouTubers tend to only work on their platform. Bloggers have their websites, that's their main platform, but many of them also have very big social platforms as well. So they might have a very big Instagram following, they might have a very big YouTube channel or TikTok or Pinterest. A lot of bloggers do very well on Pinterest. So this is another thing you want to think about. If you are paying an Instagrammer to put something on their feed, you need to remember that that is going to disappear very quickly from public view.
Yeah.
So it will only be seen after the first day or two. The only way anybody's going to see that image and that ad is if they go to the person's profile and they're scrolling through it. And very quickly it gets lost, especially if it's somebody who posts very frequently. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so if you work with a blogger and have them write a blog post for you, but also share an image on Instagram on their feed or in their stories, and maybe they also incorporate a video. In the food blogging world, it is very common to do a video as well as a blog post. You are getting far more bang for your buck.
Yes.
Because what happens with those blog posts is a lot of them get shared on Pinterest, where they will get seen by even more. Bloggers are masters of SEO because most of them survive off of ad revenue, which is directly related to traffic. So they are going to do everything they can to make sure that not only does that post get traffic when it first launches, but that it gets traffic for the rest of its life.
Yeah. And it's there, like, not that On Your Grid doesn't quote live forever, but a blog post, when I search best cookies in Abbotsford, BC, the blog post that was done 2 years ago by an influencer is still there, and Google is going to serve it up to me.
So there's an opportunity there for you to have a much bigger bang for your buck. Another place to consider is newsletters. So in my main business, we do very well with newsletter insertions for a lot of the companies we work with. In some cases, that is the most targeted piece of the campaign that they're working with us on is the newsletter, and it gets the most clicks, it gets the most views. So don't discount having an insert in somebody's newsletter. You can also advertise on podcasts. That's a very underutilized. I'm not doing that to plug my podcast.
Now taking advertising.
No. But I remember when I first started listening to podcasts, it was like every single small business podcast out there had advertising from 99 Designs. Like there was nobody else making use of that space. And yet 99 Designs was always top of my head because it was, So think about all the different avenues that influencer has for you to work with them. Is it just Instagram? Is it just YouTube? Or is it a blog plus Instagram plus YouTube plus TikTok plus Pinterest? Like, those are things to think about from a...
Yeah. And think of it as a menu, really. Like, don't think that just because somebody has all the things.
No, you don't have to do all the things.
You don't have to do all the things, right? And so you could work with somebody who has a blog and a YouTube channel but all you want, because you've set it out, this is what my goal is, I only want a newsletter insertion. That's all I want from you.
Yeah.
And because that's going to drive you to my newsletter, and once I get you on my newsletter, I'm going to do my thing. Yeah. And so you just need to think through your goal and who is going to help you achieve that goal. And it doesn't mean that you can go to McDonald's and just get the fries. You don't have to get the whole meal.
No, they're going to try and sell you the combo, right? Upsell you to the combo.
But you can pick. You can pick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's say you found your perfect influencer or influencers. In many cases, people will choose to work with several at one time to kind of have a bigger impact. But you may just choose to work with one. That's totally fine. But how do understanding the compensation? This is like a big mystery for everybody who works in the influencer sphere, whether they're the influencer or the brand. So, But as we mentioned earlier, you cannot expect for this to be free marketing. Okay,
No.
you can't expect that. And you can't expect people to work for product. Okay, so as we said before, some of them may be very willing to, a lot of them will not, unless they have a special relationship with you.
Yeah.
So how do you broach the compensations conversation?
And I think, I mean, honestly, I think unless you have something that is, I'll put maybe a dollar value on it. This might be a little low, it might be a little high, I don't know, but it gets you thinking. If you have something, a product that one item or a collection of items totals retail value no more than $500, you're going to have a conversation around compensation. For sure. You can't give somebody a candle and hope that you're going to get things for it. Like, that's just not the way it works. But if you have $1,000 item, right, or a $750 item, perhaps that particular influencer is worth having a conversation with around exchange the item only and no financial compensation. But I would be really leery about going to somebody and offering, one little thing in exchange for, and I'm not devaluing the little things. I make little things too, right? But I think it's a lot harder to get your free product for placement if that product is not of significant value that makes it worth it to the person to not get compensation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's different ways that you can compensate. Money is obviously very high up on the list.
Yes, and that's what the tax man needs. You need to give the tax man money. So
tax man,
that's how we have to pay. Exactly.
The bank, when you pay your mortgage or your rent, they all accept dollar bills.
Yes. That's it. Cold hard
They
cash.
don't accept candles.
No.
So money is a big one. Free product, yes, under the right circumstances. There is also you can do a percentage of sales that they are that influencer is directly responsible for. That's a tricky one, and very often it will have to be done in conjunction with either free product or money. But it is a way to negotiate. If you say maybe that blogger charges $200 for an Instagram post, you only have 100, perhaps you can do 100 plus a percentage of sales from that. In that instance, you're going to have to come up with a way to track that influencer's potential sales. So it might be with an affiliate link, and there's different ways you can do that we're not going to totally get into here, but there are different ways. It could be a coupon code. So that's a very popular one. So you give them a coupon code that's unique to them, and then you track how many times that coupon code is redeemed at checkout.
And I particularly love the portion of sales or a coupon code. I love that method because it really, they have to deliver.
Yes,
right?
It really does show you how many sales you're getting from this, as opposed to just eyeballs.
Correct. Like, the proof really is in the pudding, versus, just sort of wondering, well, I got 10 sales this week. Could it have just been, like, in my case, my mom on the golf course talking to the right people? Or could my, actual activities have done the thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In some cases, it might be a very high ticket free product. So in the case of sometimes travel vloggers, it might be a trip. A lot of them don't pay for their trip or their accommodation in exchange for writing about it. So there's different ways that you can go about that, and it can be one of those things, or it can be a mixture of those things.
And it doesn't have to be, and again, in terms of like mixing and matching and choosing your menu item, if you're going to go out and work with 5 influencers, don't think to yourself that every single one of them, okay, each of them is going to get this, 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 and this. No, each of them is totally unique and is going to create something totally unique for you. That's what you want. You want them to tell their own unique story. And so that you need to have the opportunity to have a unique financial compensation package per deliverable, right?
Yes.
And so which is funny because quite often on the brand side, we have a set, I'll go out to everybody and say, this is the budget. And I'm working with everybody with the same budget. And this is what it is. And that's really the start of our negotiation, which, sometimes people come back and say, no, I'm not doing it for that, which is totally up to them to do that. But you have the opportunity to create a different compensation package with every single person you're working with, even if you're working with people at the same time.
Yes. And this is something we talk about with our brand partners frequently when we're helping them with an influencer campaign or a blogger campaign, is that everybody who participates in your campaign deserves to be A, compensated for their time, and B, compensated for their value.
Yes.
Two different things. That's
Totally.
something important to remember. So you don't need to pay everybody the same amount, but you should have a flat rate for everybody's time.
Yes.
So whether that could be, maybe the base rate for everyone is $100 for that Instagram post. That's the minimum that compensates for their time. And then you start looking at the other factors like their reach, their engagement, their follower count, all of those things. And that's going to decide, like, this person gets 150, this person gets 300, so
yes,
those are the types of things to look at. But you do need to remember that no matter how small their follower numbers are, they deserve to be compensated for their time. They are taking time out of their day to promote your business.
And I would say if you saw value in reaching out to them, there is value there. Full stop. Whether it's 2 people, 10 people, or 1 million that they talk to, if you saw value in reaching out to them, there is value and that person deserves compensation.
Yes. One of the things that we should talk about now that we're talking about compensation is understanding disclosure laws.
Oh, yeah.
This is huge. And this is something that has a tendency to fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
But it is extremely important that whether you are in Canada or the United States or Europe or wherever you are located, but I know absolutely for sure in Canada and the United States because I'm very involved in this. It is required by law for whoever you are working with to disclose that they have been compensated. Whether they are compensated with free product, with money, with a trip, they have to disclose that. Okay? There is no getting around it.
Yeah. And they don't have to say, I was paid $500, but they need to say that they got paid.
Absolutely, they need to say that they got paid. If you send them unsolicited product, so let's say that you're like, I am just going to blast out 20 gift packs to these influencers without discussing it with them. And let's say one of them sees it and is like, oh, that's really cool. I'm going to share that with my audience. They still need to say, this was sent to me by so-and-so. Okay.
Yes.
They cannot imply that they went out and bought it. There is no such thing as organic influencer marketing. I hear brands saying this all the time, like, oh, can't you do this so it seems more organic? Or can't you just like try and hide the hashtags? That's your advertising. There's nothing organic about it.
Totally.
Okay?
And so here's where, and this was the biggest compliment I ever got on the brand side was when we worked with an influencer, one of the comments on their blog post was, I'm so glad these people are finally paying you because you talk about X product all the time. And so this person loved our food product, loved it, talked about it, used it all the time. That's why our research led them to say, yes, we want to work with you. We then gave them money to do all of the things that they loved to do. And that validated that it was a perfect fit because they were doing it already. Like they're already talking about. And so organic is Melissa finding the person who loves talking about cute cards they find on Etsy and the snail mail that they send that week. If they have a feature on their Instagram that talks about their snail mail find of the week, and then Melissa lands in their hands and pays them to do it, it's still a beautiful fit in storytelling, right? And nothing seems off. And who cares if there's a giant hashtag sponsored across the story because it fits so beautifully, nobody cares.
Yes. And don't assume when you see a blogger or an Instagrammer or whoever talking about a product, don't assume that they were paid. There are a
Yeah.
lot of influencers and bloggers out there who just talk about stuff they love, and they are not paid for it.
I do it all the time.
Yeah,
I
I
talk
do it
about it
too.
all the time, and I tag the brands. I mention the brands because I and this, I think, any true, authentic influencer, whether they're talking to just their phone for themselves or for the millions of people who listen to them, I want to share, like, funny enough, I shared on my Instagram a cleaning product that I loved recently. And I shared it on my Instagram, but I also picked up the phone and called my dad and said, Dad, the next time you're at Canadian Tire, you need to buy because, and I said to my dad all the same things that I just said on my Instagram. And that to me is authentic influence. I'm telling somebody because I truly believe in it and I'm doing it. And so I would say, look for those influencers, look for people who love to shout from the rooftops that they love things just because when they shout about your thing, it'll seem a little bit more genuine, I think.
Yes. So there are definitely rules around this. In the United States, it's the FTC who oversees the
I think they're disclosure laws. Disclosure laws.
Something like that. In Canada, it's ad standards, and actually my business, we have sat on the influencer committee for disclosure rules with ad standards and help them develop their disclosure rules. So cool. I'm very aware of what is required.
You influencer you.
But most of the social media platforms have tools that an influencer is required to use if they are being paid or provided any kind of compensation. But they are still required to hashtag with ad or sponsored. Those hashtags need to be very visible. So they cannot bury those hashtags in a list of hashtags way down at the bottom. It should actually be above the fold in any kind of, all those types of things. There is no getting around it. Okay. And if an influencer fails to do that and somebody lodges a complaint, you, the brand, are going to get in trouble.
Yes.
Okay. The influencer will get in trouble as well, but you are going to be in trouble because it is your responsibility to ensure that your partners are doing things the correct way. So this is really important. Do not try to skip out.
Absolutely. And I would say if you are a maker creator and you reach out to somebody and they say, oh my gosh, I love doing this. And you know what? We'll just pretend this is organic. We'll just make this a story and we won't no, you do not hang up the phone, close the DMs. You do not want to work with a person like that.
Most ethical influencers, if a brand asks them to bury something or to make something a follow link, that's another thing. If it's mentioned on their website, they have to do a no follow link. If you ask them to do that, they're out. Like, see you later. I'm not the person for you. So it leaves a sour taste in somebody's mouth when you ask them to do something that's not legal.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I mean, we all see advertising everywhere. Advertising is everywhere. We know it's there. I don't know why people feel the need to push it under. No. And was it you I was talking about with last week, Melissa, when we were talking? Anyway, I'm going to mention it again, but it was the ad breaks. I've been seeing a lot, in particular on Instagram, influencers doing like their regular content.
We did talk about this, but we didn't talk about it on a podcast. It was just a phone call. Yes.
A phone call. Yes. It was one of the phone calls we didn't record. But I think it's awesome. So they're literally having their regular content and then they will say, like, it's a red screen or pink screen or whatever it is, and it clearly says ad break. And then they introduce it and they're like, you guys know how much I love blah, blah, blah product. And they do their own little infomercial and then they end the ad break after, 3, 4, 5, 10 stories, whatever it is, and end the ad break. And so very clearly that all of the content between those two bookends is sponsored. And yet, I'll tell you, the number of bloggers who I follow who have been doing that, the content that they deliver in between those ad break bookends is just as good and just as engaging and just as awesome as the content on either side of it. I'm going to continue to follow them and continue to listen to what they have to say because I love the transparency that they're serving up to me.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, have unfollowed many influencers who I know for fact were receiving compensation but didn't disclose it. And I decided to remove my number, my precious little number one, from their counter ticker of people who they claim to have influence over.
Yes.
That's how I voted with my dollar, is saying no.
I've done that many times too.
Yeah.
But you know, I love the idea of people creating their own commercial, like ad breaks.
Yeah.
But a really great example of this, if you want to see this done exceptionally well, is Ryan Reynolds, the actor. Follow his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is nothing but ads. It is nothing but ads. He also, I believe he owns, I believe he founded an agency, and so a lot of the ads are clients of his agency, and he appears in all the ads. He's in them. They're hilarious. They are so creative and so well done. And every time he puts one out, it gets millions of views. And you read the comments where people are like, I can't believe I subscribe to a channel that's all ads, but it's so funny. You know, like he just hits the right note. Like, and there's no hiding that they're ads. No. They're ads.
They're ads, exactly. And that's the thing. And we all, I mean, gosh, like Super Bowl commercials, right?
Exactly.
Ads can captivate you. Ads can be engaging. Ads can be meaningful. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I, as a maker creator, I seek that. I want whoever is creating an ad for my product to make it awesome.
You're a creative business, so team up with a creative influencer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've actually gone past the hour mark, but let's just cover a couple of things that are also important. You've done this campaign. Great. How do you assess whether or not it was successful? So one of the first things you should know, if you are working with a digital content creator who does this regularly, blogger, Instagrammer, YouTuber, they should be sending you a post-campaign report. And that's something that when you are having your initial negotiations with them, that you should request. You should tell them, I expect a report at the end of the campaign or within 30 days of the campaign. And these are the things I'm looking for from you. So I want to know how many people, I want to see some screenshots. I want to know how many people engaged with it. If there was any great comments that I should know about, let me see those. You know, I'm also going to be looking at how many people redeemed the coupon code. So you want to be looking at all of those things. And an influencer should provide you with that information. You're not going to be able to necessarily see their back end piece.
Yeah. And that goes into, like, that ask for data goes into, just to backtrack quickly on disclosure. But when you're having that conversation around compensation and all of the things, once you've netted out what it is that you guys are going to do together, you know, that super creative, collaborative thing that you've figured out, put that you don't need to have a legal document, but put that all in an email that says, you're going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And these are the terms of our relationship. And those thises should include, you will be disclosing this relationship, and you will be giving me results at the end of it, right? Yes. And so you need to be very clear about the demands, including things like disclosure that should just be automatic. And you could even have a little thing like, you're going to bill me for this by this day.
Yes.
It could, you can go down that far.
And you as the brand should also be including what you're going to do. So it could be things like, I will have the product to you by this date. I will have the key messaging to you, and any additional product images or anything that you're providing the content creator with. I'm going to have that to you by this date. There was another one.
I will amplify your posts.
Yes, that's a big one. Content creators love it when you amplify. So please, and it's an easy thing to do. There was one more.
And gosh, you're paying them for stuff. I don't know why you wouldn't amplify it, right? Like, to me, that's just like leaving money on the till. Like, look that $5 bill over there. I'll just leave it. Like, that's crazy.
Yes, they're creating content for you. So
share it.
So share
multiple times.
Yes. There was one more in there in my head that I was thinking you need to. Anyway, those are the big ones. Yes, the disclosure that you expect from them, when you'll get them the product, when you'll have them all the pieces that they need. Those all need to be spelled out.
And just have it all in one email, so that you're not reading through the 72 emails that you had back and forth. You know, you might have it all clear in your head, but it's really nice to have it all sorted in one document. Yeah. And that's just sort of part of that, like, I'm a grown-up business person, checkbox, look at me.
Yes.
Just, yeah.
And payment terms was the other one. So
Yes.
if you pay in 15 days, 30 days, 60 days, make sure that's very clear as well.
Clear.
That's only fair. That
Yes.
person deserves to know when they're going to get paid. So one of the other things you might want to think about after you have completed a project with an influencer is whether or not to continue on with them and actually make them like an ambassador. And this is a question we get asked a lot. What's the difference between an influencer campaign and an ambassador campaign? And just to go into it really quickly, as we're running out of time, an ambassador campaign is a much longer term relationship. Yeah. So that's somebody that you maybe work with on a 6-month or a year long or even a multi-year. And they promote your product throughout the year. You might send them jewelry would actually be a great example. I've seen a lot of jewelry brand ambassadors. So like you have a jewelry line, you might send them something every season with every seasonal release. You might send them a new product, and this is the product that we're talking about for this season. The financial compensation is usually higher for an ambassadorship because often ambassadors are exclusive. So that person will not promote any other jewelry while they are your ambassador. So for that, they tend to get paid more money because it means they have to say no to a lot of other things. So that's something important to know. But ambassadorships can be really, really productive. It's an opportunity for you to dive deeper on a creative level together. It becomes a true collaboration.
Collaboration, yeah.
So there's a lot of power in an ambassadorship, but I would not recommend that anybody dives into an ambassadorship without working on a one-off basis with somebody first. Like,
for sure,
you want to make sure that person really gets your brand, they really embody your brand, they're really good to work with, and they want to know the same about you, right? They want to make sure, like, yeah, you know what, I really love what Heather's doing, and she's a fantastic partner, and she pays on time, and all those things.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, let's talk about red flags.
So many red flags.
So many red flags. So I see a lot of posts about this in the Facebook groups that I'm in, where somebody, a maker, an artist, gets approached by an influencer, and now I'm using the words in quotation marks, wanting free product. And whether or not this is somebody they should work with, and just a lot of questions around whether or not to know this person is legit and ethical and all the things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are people out there who are shady.
Yes.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
The vast majority of influencers and content creators out there are really wonderful people who work very hard and who do all the things right. But there is a small group out there who, unfortunately, tends to give the influencer community a bit of a bad name.
Yeah.
This is my list of red flags. If they try to avoid disclosure.
Yes, huge one.
Just as a legit influencer will run away from you if you try to avoid disclosure, you should run away from an influencer.
Yeah.
Who okay, just don't. That's a whole legal matter. You don't want to get into a legal situation. So, do they have a private account? This shocks me. How many people get approached by people with private Instagram accounts and want to...
I'm amazed by that, honestly. I just had a conversation with a girlfriend recently, and it's a private account, but it has 11,000 followers. And I'm like, how do you know 11,000 people to follow you? I'm so confused by that. Anyway.
Yeah. Somebody who has a private account, and there's loads of legitimate reasons for having a private account. But generally speaking, if you have a private account, you are not an influencer. Okay. No. You are not looking to actively grow. You are not looking to, that's just a big red flag.
And it's not to say that you don't have influence over those people that you're privately sharing stuff with, but I, as a maker creator, would not go to you to have stuff told behind closed. Like, to me, that's going and having that's Oprah, but not televising it. So what's the point?
Yes. I get a lot of private accounts that follow my art Instagram account, and I never follow them back because I assume they're private for a reason.
Me too. Yeah.
Right? Like, they're private because this is their friends and family on.
Correct.
Right. So,
yes.
So private account, that's a big red flag. Inconsistent posting.
Yes.
So you want somebody who's posting regularly. It doesn't have to be every day or multiple times a day. But if the last time they posted was a month ago and the time before that was 3 months ago, like that's not somebody who is actively engaging with their community, at least not on that platform.
Yeah.
Only does sponsored content.
Yeah.
Big red flag.
Big red flag.
They're for sale.
Yeah.
They're not really particularly interested. They're only on that platform to make money. And there's nothing wrong with making money, but it means they're probably not particularly interested in their community. They're just, like that's a, yeah.
Yeah. One of my red flags for sure is people, and it's so interesting. I just was followed by an account the other day that I was like, what is this? And so it's people who don't use their own photos. And so you can legitimately have an account giving credit where credit's due, asking permission to share people's photos. Like, then they're not doing, quote, anything wrong, but they're using other people's quality content in sort of the right way to their own advantage. And then they sort of mix in their own stuff and sprinkle it in. And I'm not coming to you because you're really good at curating other people's stuff. I want to come to you for you. And so when your account is loaded with other people's content, that's where I immediately am like, what are you trying to do here?
Yeah. And so on my main business, we do share a lot of other people's content because we are a membership-based organization.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
So the point is, it's not like we do it. We have a legit reason for doing it. But before you approach us, like understand what we're about. Like there's a very specific reason we do that. It's because our job is to promote our members, right?
Yes.
So consider that before you decide you want to work with us. Maybe that is a good fit for you, but maybe it's not.
And that's exactly it. Like if you do want to work with somebody who just curates awesome things and you're one of the awesome things that they want to curate out, great. But it depends on how they're weaving that story. And I would say too, maybe a red flag, it's not, if something just gives you like tingles in the wrong way, like your spidey senses are up and you don't know why, that to me is a red flag. Just walk away. If something feels uncomfortable about it, just walk away. As in everything in life. Yeah.
Get those bad feelings. The last one on my list was poor engagement. So that's a red flag too. So I have seen so many people over the last few weeks, months, who have been approached by influencers who are asking for free product in exchange for promoting their product. And so, Heather and I have done episodes on pitching brands that you want to work with as a content creator. It's perfectly okay for people to pitch you. Like if somebody comes to you and says, I love what you do. I would love for us to find a way to work together. There's nothing wrong with that. They're being proactive and they're hustling.
That's a great way to start the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's somebody worth having a conversation with, or at least researching a little bit to see if they are the right fit. Yes. But that is on you when you're approached. You really need to look at them and say, why is this person approaching me? And what are they offering me in return? And all those kinds of things. But I see a lot of people getting approached by people who just want free stuff, because there is a group of people out there who do that. They just want the freebies.
And I would say those aren't influencers.
They're not. There's times where that can work out for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you really need to evaluate who the person is. And,
totally.
If it's somebody that you've seen who talks about you a lot and does promote you. There was one instance where a woman was approached by somebody who wanted to do something in exchange for free product. And she said, this person has talked about my product in the past, and I know I've gotten 4 or 5 direct sales directly from her that I can trace back to her. Okay, so in an instance like that, that's somebody worth taking a look at. At least, what was it about what they were doing that caused you to get some direct sales? They're obviously talking to a certain group of people who are your target market. And so in that case, maybe investing a couple $100 in free product for that person that might be worth it. Again, you need to, it might only be $20 worth of free product. You need to like
Yes.
evaluate
But
the
again, like that's
situation.
part of even setting up, and not to dwell on the pitching part of it, but even the fact that they've mentioned this brand multiple times before they pitched them,
Mm-hmm.
that to me is part of the authenticity of the
Yes.
pitch. And so that sort of fits in as opposed to this like cold call email, I want your stuff.
Yeah.
What? Like, and it's not 2001, like the good old days of just emailing people from your blog saying, I have a blog, I want free stuff, and people being over the moon to send it to you. That doesn't happen
No,
anymore.
that's 10 years ago.
At least, exactly. So now, and this is like we've talked about it, most influencers worth their salt are not going to take free product. So if
No,
you're
they'll have a
being
media kit. They'll have
yeah.
guidelines for working with
So
them.
if you're being approached by somebody who just wants free stuff, you really, I would take a really heavy look at it. And I also, one of the firm rules that I always had was if the email comes to me, Heather, dear Heather, I will pay more attention to it than if it's to nobody. So there's not even a dear to whom it may concern, dear, not even dear blogger, like nothing. It just like launches into it. We want to reach out to ambassadors. Sign up here.
Yeah, no. Those are form letters, and you can usually determine that.
Totally.
But there was an instance in a group a few weeks ago where somebody was approached by someone who wanted free product. It was a very niche product, and that the person handmade, and the influencer, and I'm using quotation marks this time because I don't consider this person an influencer at all, was offering to do 5 Instagram posts, only one of which would mention or tag the creator of this product because they wanted it to be more organic.
No.
Okay. Again, red flag right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not wanting to disclose. That's a red flag. Not wanting to tag you and list you as the creator of that product.
That's weird.
I mean, that's you don't want to work with somebody who's not going to mention your name, your brand name, right? Another red flag. And they had a private account. Third red flag. Like that shouldn't have even been a question in the group. That should have just been a flat out hell no.
Well, no kidding, exactly.
So there are people out there who will try that. So you need to be just aware. Like always have your feelers up, your antenna up, twitching, but be open and approachable, and be willing to be flexible.
And I would say, if you're a creator, you're a maker, and you're looking to figure out even where to start, like what do I do? Look at the people who already love you. Like look at the people who like your posts, engage with them, comment on it, and follow the breadcrumbs back to their Instagram, to their blog, to their YouTube channel.
Look at your repeat customers.
Exactly. Look at your repeat customers and figure out who are the people
digging on them. Do they have an Instagram account?
Exactly, because those people, and again, in terms of stuff happening like organically, quote, if somebody already loves you and engages with your things, you reaching out to them and saying, hey, Melissa, I see you comment on all of my art posts, and I really appreciate that. I see you also have a blog, and I would love to have a conversation with you about collaborating.
Yep.
Boom. Right? And so you've already kind of found your people because you were served up to each other, as opposed to having to sit down and be like, tapping your fingers on the desk, who to work with, and typing into Google, influencer for selling my handmade cookies.
Yeah. Look at your people. Look at your people who open your newsletter every week. Look at your people who are repeat buyers. See where they hang out online. Not all of them are going to be, a good fit, but like some of them are just literally they're customers and they don't live in the influencer space. But you never know who's out there, who's paying attention. Look at who tags you on Instagram. I mean, I think virtually every single person I have sent who has ordered from me on Etsy has tagged me on Instagram and shown what they've bought. Like those are the people that I'm going to be paying attention to if I ever wanted to do a paid campaign. Like I'd be like, that person has bought from me 3 times and they've shared it on their Instagram account every single time.
Yeah, totally. And I would say this is a small little sort of maker note, but make sure that when you're sending your product, your widget, your whatever out to these people, that you include if you like what you're saying, please share it on your Instagram and tag at Heather Travis.
Absolutely.
And because that little call to action, now they're going to do it. You have it. They've just done some great advertising for you. And so don't be afraid to ask for those little things, even when somebody's giving you cash money, right? Just include that little note.
You know, if you've got somebody who has bought from you 3 or 4 times and they mention you every time on social media, and maybe they're not a good fit for you from a influencer perspective, send them a freaking coupon code for 30% off their next purchase, like something to reward them for.
Totally. And you know, it's funny in terms of even private accounts. I have a dear girlfriend of mine. She has a private account because she's a stay-at-home mom. And I told her a million years ago, you need to make your account private and keep your kids' photos private and to yourself and to your family. But she is one of my biggest supporters for my art. And I'll tell you, I send a little something extra in every order that she places with me, because she's the person who turns around and hands it to another mom at a school pickup, and she's like my on the ground influencer who doesn't use her social media.
Yes.
And I know that about her. And I love it about her, and I'm happy to reward her and surprise and delight her with these things, because I've seen it. People have placed orders saying, I talked to this woman at school bus lineup and she told me about your product and I had to order it.
Yes.
Right. And so I wouldn't forget about the influencers who aren't even online.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we covered a lot of stuff this week. This is a long episode, but I think there was a ton of stuff in here, and I really hope it helps some of you out there who are trying to figure out this influencer landscape, because it is complicated and there's a lot of conflicting information and there is some sketchy stuff out there, but it can be such a rewarding marketing tool if you do your research, build your relationships.
And you never know who you're going to find. Honest to goodness, I think when you start collaborating with some other influencers, maybe it's another creative who has a symbiotic relationship with your product and their product. You can collaborate on it. The creative relationships and the collaboration and the opportunities that are going to flourish out of doing something like this, I think, are really going to open up neat opportunities for any business. So, yeah.
Well, Heather, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much.
So I mentioned in the last episode with Heather that she was going to be joining me once a month in January. We kind of went early. And we haven't talked about December, whether or not you're going to be on the show in December, but we'll talk about that
Yay!
Offline. But she'll definitely be here in January at least once a month to talk about these more business-related topics of running a small creative business. But it's always a pleasure to have you here. I always enjoy our chats.
Me too.
And yes, thank you everyone. And as I mentioned, if you are looking for your free avatar worksheet, you can head over to andshелookedup.com and sign up for our newsletter list, and you will get your free avatar worksheet when you sign up. So that is it for this week. And so we'll see you all next week. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.